Welcome to the Resilience Sucks podcast, brought to you by the Adaptability Movement. I'm Ben.
And I'm Dan.
And we're here to give you resources and tools to help you go from a state of surviving to thriving in life.
Resilience sucks the life out of you. And while it's a necessary skill, it's one that we don't want to spend too much time in or we run out of capacity. We're here to talk to you more about how to adapt and find the opportunity in change so you can really go about thriving in your own life.
Welcome to another episode of the Resilience Sucks podcast. I'm here today with Ben Flink from RAA, and you are the Senior Manager of Innovation here. And the reason we've got Ben on today is I actually met with my co-founder, Ben Haran, at a networking event recently, and obviously got talking about the whole thing around innovation and like just that concept of creating and abundance and well-being. And obviously the invitation put out and you gracefully accepted. So Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for the invitation and looking forward to talking.
Awesome. So we always love exploring someone's story. So we've obviously given people the headline of who you are and where you are now. But what I'm really keen to do is drop into kind of your story and where this all started and what shaped your direction towards this passion for innovation and some other stuff which I'll let you introduce. So tell us a little bit about.
I think first off is to say it's just a passion for learning. So having a curious mind and having that passion for learning is probably the key takeaway for me, right? So when I hear a lot of talk these days around mindsets, and I was at a conference recently and I do some defense stuff as well, and the space people come out and say you've got to have a space mindset, and then you'll have the cyber people going, we've got to have a cyber mindset, right?
Yeah.
And so my team at Innovation at RAA, we do talk a lot about a growth mindset, but how I personalise that for me is really it's around a learning mindset. And in terms of an organisation and looking after innovation for an organisation, where we want to end up is being a learning organisation so that we adapt, right? So what does it mean to learn? Learning in itself is talking about the fact that there's unknowns, so we need to get something new, right, in. And so to do that, we try things through trial and error, and then we get data back, a feedback mechanism, and then we adapt to what we've learned. And that's what the learning mindset is to me, and that's what I mean by a learning organisation, is that we are curious, we test. Sometimes things don't work, but we get the data and then we adapt and respond to that.
Yeah, and like it's the very premise of what we do is that like the whole thing is trial it, test it, have an idea or a concept and two steps forward. That's what we're going to do. Like most people want the 12-month plan or the 12-step plan, and it's like everything's going to change at step 2 anyway. So have your intention, have your vision, and then just start working out how far you can go down that path before you need to bin that and move on to something else. I love that. Like we talk about a growth mindset or an abundance mindset, which is very much the same. And the whole thing is just like how do we adapt? World's constantly changing. Are we going to take a backward seat and go, oh, this is crap, it used to be like this and it was so much better, or are we going to go, where's the opportunity in this? So it sounds like you're very much in that space with what you're doing. And
yeah, definitely. So I agree with that.
Where does that drive come from? What's drawn you into this kind of line of work?
Yeah, that's it's hard to sort of articulate a specific event, right? Because everyone's life is a series of events and failures. So I've had many, but I think from my perspective, some unique experiences for me, which I think is what has helped me to excel at what I do now, is I had a significant event when I was very young, which is my mother committed suicide when I was 1.5, right? So I don't have a memory of my mum. I have a memory. Well, my memories are of living with different aunties and uncles and my grandmother and etc. So my childhood was this almost communal sort of family sharing thing. It was a bit different, and my father was in the army, so he was away a lot. So I didn't have a strong mother or father figure, which made me very independent in terms of my childhood. And then with my father being in the army, when I was 4, he remarried, and then that's when I went and lived with him again. And then him being in the army, travelled all around Australia. So every 2 years, was going to a new school.
Yeah.
And so I've always been the outsider or on the fringe or the new person breaking into all these different types of groups. So I think that in itself has taught me some things around being independent, how to be resilient, I guess, and be resilient. The fact that you having to always cope with change.
Yeah.
So being comfortable with change, being comfortable with learning to make new friends and realising that the world is constantly changing. So that's the childhood precursor to that, and I think also interesting about that is academic studies was really important to me because I didn't have a really long-term tight friend group. I never have.
Yeah, sure.
So I with all that change, I was really into books and learning and reading. So it's just a result of that childhood, but it set me up for success. Yeah. So I did really well in year 12. Tried many different things and failed. I'm a biomedical engineering dropout, proudly. So tried to get into Army a couple.
Testing again, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tried to get into Army a couple of times. I was rejected by Army twice. And then I sort of found my feet probably around 24. That's right. I went into surfing for a while. Actually, I was just a bit of a hobo, traveling around surfing. I really enjoyed my life.
Brilliant.
And then settled down and went back to uni, finished my science degree, started working at Flinders, and just fell into some unique opportunities to be in the commercialisation space, and just got exposed to lots and lots of different research at the university, which I loved, and developing skill sets around. So I had the science background, so I understood the technology, but in terms of the commercialisation, learning all around marketing and partnerships. I had some great mentors during that period, and it's just grown and grown from there. And then an interest in entrepreneurship and launching my own startups. So that's. And so then I can sort of tie that back to my childhood and just that piece around being comfortable with being alone, or being comfortable with the unknown, or that things or being comfortable trying things and then them not working has certainly helped me to be in my current position.
Yeah. So it's a really good point, and we kind of see a pattern with this. Like, people that are familiar with the art of adaptability, they're generally people that have encountered hardships, challenges, and it's really, you probably hear this a bit it's how you respond to something, and it can sound like telling someone to suck eggs sometimes when they haven't got a deeper understanding of what adaptability is. It's something that's exciting. It's something it's an opportunity in it. Like, yes, you're going to be uncomfortable. Yes, you're going to have to get comfortable failing, and that's a hard thing to. It's a hard thing to embrace or to welcome into your life, particularly when you're a young person.
Definitely.
And probably, I'm only, I don't make an assumption because we make an ass out of you and me. But that whole thing of if you haven't got strong connections with parents and they're not demonstrating or role modeling that for you, then how do you actually fumble your way through to develop that? And I know for me, that comfort with being uncomfortable, like, that's taken time to develop. Like, that's taken me at least a bit like you, the mid-20s kind of thing. Invested heavily in personal development sort of opportunities, but even mid-30s, you're like, oh wow, I'm so much more developed than I am, and now hitting 40 recently. I was like, okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But it's still that process of it's lifelong learning. It's not about arriving at a destination. It's just about that commitment to learning, like you were saying before. So I'm conscious of the people that are listening to this. There'll be people like us that are innovating and more comfortable with this already. For those that aren't, is there anything you can draw on or remember in terms of how you manage to sort of I mean, for me, I had to shift that mindset. For you, like, did you have that sort of insecurity, maybe a little bit of anxiety around the change at first before you learnt to sort of see the opportunity in it? Or?
Oh, definitely. So yeah, it wasn't until probably the same age as you, sort of the early 20s, that I recognised that what I was doing wasn't good for me, right? So just in terms of where I was at, in terms of, even just, alcohol consumption and all those sorts of behaviours, and just wanted something different. And I wasn't gainfully employed, and I just wanted to charge. I said, I can do better than this.
Yeah.
And I just sort of went, no, I can do better than this. I want more for my life than this, and it just needed that motivation. But I think it needs to be intrinsic. I think it needs to be from inside. You need to wake up the dragon within, or the fire within, right, to fire up. And then with that fire, there comes courage and to drive. But you need to wake up internally. I think it's very hard to construct that, with external input.
Well, I mean, and I guess this is where we've taken on the challenge, because you're right. Like, I think we're broadly talking about self-awareness. Like being self-aware that I want something more than this, and that I'm capable of that, and acknowledging where you're at and how you're operating. And we often say you don't really teach self-awareness. You teach things that are catalysts for self-awareness. So what I mean by that is, if you're not self-aware, you don't know you're not self-aware because you're not self-aware. It's this paradigm, or this irony. But we utilise things like obviously the art of reflection, like accountability, like recruiting accountability buddies, bringing mentors into your life. That innovation, growth mindset type mentality of, well, let's just try something. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like hearing this. I don't like acknowledging the things that I don't feel like I'm doing well. But at the same time, when I lean into that a little bit, I discover there's something more, and then I can feel more satisfied in those areas. I just think that's a lot of, again, the reason I ask you all this is because I think there'll be some people that are listening to this or watching it, and they'll be, but that's not me, or that's not my experience, or they might just be feeling like this but not feel like it's accessible to them, which is the whole point of podcast, is to go, well, no, this is accessible to everyone. Yes, it's going to require a shift. Yes, you're going to have to take some personal responsibility for it, and be prepared to let go of the safety in pointing towards other things that happen to you, to go, well, those things happen, maybe not to everyone. But then, how do I respond? How do I become a great responder no matter what situation I'm in? It's not about perfect planning. It's about, okay, this is what I've got available to me. What do I need? Where do I want to go? How do we start taking steps towards that? Is that does that resonate with you in the way you've experienced it?
Yeah. So the first fundamental shift for me, I think the word I'd probably use is maybe self-control. Yeah, self-awareness, but I think for me, I would say I had a bit more of a victim mindset prior to that, up to my 20s, where I felt, I've been hard done by and that. And then, so the mindset shift was around saying, well, actually, I'm just going to think on things that are positive for me and not negative for me. So starting to change the internal dialogue, so changing the internal dialogue. And the other thing, when I talk about the control thing, was just recognising that actually there are things that I can control, and there are things that I can't. And there's no point in having a negative mindset or negative loop or negative emotions attached to things that are outside of my control, because I can't influence that. So it's just like, it's just a zero-sum game. So then it's really, well, how about I just worry about the things I can control, and change that and work on that. And then I think that mindset shift is where my life started taking a different trajectory.
So it's fascinating. We see these patterns all the time, and this is kind of the thing that I'm trying to provoke within people, is to go, where in your life could you look inwards at that stuff and go, okay, again, safety and that kind of victim's mindset, and that's confronting to hear in the first place that someone's maybe accusing you of being in that, but it's like it's a normal human reaction to stress. So if you've had a stressful upbringing, or you've lost your mum without developing a memorable connection with her, well, that's a significant influence on your life. And so it's like it's quite normal for us to experience that kind of thing as a coping strategy. It's how we survive. It's how we manage to continue sort of moving on. But then to have that moment of self-reflection to go, this isn't helpful. This isn't working for me. Like, yes, I could beat myself up saying that I'm a poor person for not having recognised this earlier in myself, or that I've been really negative. But it's like it's not even about that. Like, why do that to yourself?
That's right.
And we've all done it. Like, I don't know many people that haven't had moments like that. But we try and go, is it helpful or unhelpful? Is it useful or not useful? Rather than putting these badges of good, bad, like positive, negative on it. And to some people that might feel like, you're being picky or particular, but it really does help shift.
I like that terminology of useful or not useful. Yeah, that's really good.
Because it just takes the emotion out of it. It's like, well, I can use this or I can't. It's much like, what can I control? Like, I can't influence that, but I can influence this. And so, and the more that you do that, again, the language used before, like we call it manifesting, and some people think that that's a very spiritual thing, and it can be, but really it's about giving energy to the things that you want to move towards, rather than spending all your time worrying about the things that you're not satisfied with. And it's not that you don't address them, it's just that you don't carry that same emotional baggage around with you, because you're going, okay, is that helpful? Not really, it's not really serving me. So where could I put that energy, which is going to help, realise that outcome I'm looking for. And I mean, you're obviously living it. So to talk us further through that. So it sounds like we got through to study. We got through that sort of early 20s now, where you're starting to have those realizations. You've gone, actually, this is what I want from life. Where to from
there? I also joined Army Reserve, so I went through reserve training, and that was great. So it was the third time I'd applied. Finally got in, so that's pretty good. I joke about that, but I went through officer training, which was again challenging, good challenge, right? And personal growth. Had the opportunity to deploy as a platoon commander overseas as well, with 29 soldiers, and lead them on operations. So that was again, such a challenging environment, learning environment. Learnt so much. Loved leadership. Love leading people, and so real desire. I've got a real strong passion and desire to lead people. I enjoy people. I care about people. I genuinely care about people, and just in terms of even a leadership philosophy. I think if you look, I always say to all of my staff or everyone I work with, if you care and genuinely care about your people, everything else will resolve itself, right? If you look after your people first, they'll look after whatever needs to get done. And probably the other thing for me, reflecting on moving around a lot, and being excluded at times, and so for me, a real core value I have is around diversity and inclusion. So being non-judgmental and being very inclusive, and I find in particular from an innovation perspective, that's really important, because we all have our internal worldview. There's this funny, in fact, it happened recently around, even maps, right? So maps are a certain way, and north points a certain way, right? Well, who made that, right? You can turn it upside down, it's still, a depiction of the same representation. It's just a different view. So, in terms of an innovation perspective, we all have, there's opinions and there are facts, and a lot of us have opinions on things. That won't work, that will work, and blah, blah, blah. And so for me, diversity and inclusion is really important. So I make sure we have a diverse team with, gender and age and ethnicity. Lots of different views are going to make better solutions. Absolutely. because we all bring our own biases. The more we can appreciate the different perspectives, the more holistic view we've got of the map and what's really going on, and then therefore what solution we develop or what we do moving forward has a higher chance of success because it's considered. It's more considered.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. More collaborative.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I love this, because in society we often we congregate in
tribes.
So we go, right. But like, not even like, if I think
I call
about
it
a
tribes,
tribe,
but
I actually think of a lot of diversity within a tribe, because that's what made the tribe successful.
Yeah.
But we sort of go, we're separated by our first obvious difference. So it's like, you know, Port supporter, Crow supporter, right?
Yeah.
And you separate. And
Hilarious.
now you're...
I'm Bombers, so I don't have any friends here.
Oh, there you go. Jeez, how's this going?
There's two of us.
Suffering. Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to go, oh, now you're like the opposition. And like one of mantras in my own relationship is we're teammates, and people might think that's a sports influence because I spend a lot of life in sport, but it's really about, well, when you're on the same team, and trying to recall that in stressful situations when you know you're deprived of sleep, or you know the stress is on, or there's financial problems. It's like there's no good attacking each other, particularly because if you're on the same team, you know more about each other than anyone else. So your worst enemy is always going to be your best friend if you turn them against you, or your partner, because they've got more arsenal than anyone else because of that vulnerability that's been shared. Yeah. But conversely, like, how much trust can you build when you respect that whole thing around, it's kind of that almost that sacred masculine, in that you have the power to do damage or be reckless, or to but you choose not to use it to protect and to nurture and to bring in some of that balance with the sacred feminine, and to find that way of having it all available to you, but being the architect and the author of the way.
I really like the word architect. That's a really great word.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why that really resonates for me, because from an innovation perspective, I think there's a lot of architecting going on, right? Because it's about change and uncertainty, and there's many elements. So I talked about the diversity and inclusion, but I architect a very diverse team. There's one piece of specific design that I put into the way I approach innovation. And then in terms of the architecting, so there's the people perspective. Then there's the conditions that you're operating in. So from the architecting piece, there's processes to put in place. There's a number of relationships, key relationships that you need to, almost map out and go, right, well, who's, it's like, like network analysis. Well, who are the influencers? Who are the decision makers? And building, architecting those relationships to enable you to get the job of change done in this space. So, I really like the architecting piece. I think it's a really good word.
I find it empowering for people, because a lot of you would come back to that victim's mindset. People sort of feel like they're the result of their experiences, rather than using their experiences to shape things in the way they want. Yeah. So when you describe to people, it's a lot less threatening. You're the architect of your own life.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's by design.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yes, there's things that will happen to you. Choose reflect on where you can respond in a way that's helpful. Yeah. So we often, I imagine you probably sort of awareness of this as well, with that whole fight, flight, freeze kind of bias. Yeah. One of the things we try and do with the whole self-awareness is give people an experience, because like you said, you can't teach a lot of this stuff. Like you can't just theoretically come in and go, this is what it is, if you got it now. It's like, give someone a movement-based experience, reflect on it, test it, but then go, now, as we sort of come back and sit down to talk about that experience, what did you notice about yourself? Like, how did you respond in a stressful situation? When we introduced chaos deliberately, what was your first instinct? Because again, it doesn't have to be, oh, you're great, you're a fighter. Well, sometimes a fighter's a really, if you use it in the wrong way or in an unhelpful way, then it's destructive. And so you could say, oh, freeze is not helpful. Well, actually, freeze can be really good sometimes, because it buys you some time to actually make an informed decision. But only if you're aware of it. So it's like, how can you use each of those things? Like, flight, you can get out of danger. That's important sometimes, right? So being aware of that bias, so we can emotionally ground ourselves quicker to then make the informed decision to move towards what we want again.
Agree.
And that's where I feel like as a society, a lot of it is emotionally driven. We get caught up in that, and it's like, and it becomes an excuse too. It's like, well, that's me. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve, and that's fine. Like we want to see your emotions, but let's not use that as an excuse for being irresponsible about how you've shared.
Well, if it's not useful, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just it's a whole thing of being mindful, being present. But how do you do that? It's very intangible until you put like some structure or some context into how to do it. So one of the things we use is we call it a bookmark moment. So we use it as a challenge to people. It's like, how many bookmark moments can you make throughout the day? Like, when you're with someone, like right now we're having one, and it's because there's eye contact, there's connection, there's a real, we're here right now with each other. We're not trying to think about the next thing we say. We're just experiencing
authenticity.
what we're having.
Just being in the moment, present.
And so then it's like, bang, I've archived that now. I can come back to that any time. It wasn't hard, and it was so tangible, so easy to sort of do that, as opposed to, you need to be more mindful. You need to be more, present in your day. It's like, how do you do that? There's so much stuff going on in life without having a method, an easily accessible one. And then it's just repetition. It's just training yourself to do that.
Yeah.
So
I think breathing's a lot to do with that.
Let's go there, because you talked about this beforehand. So you mentioned that you were doing some Kundalini yoga, which is actually something I've been investigating, that and Qigong and some other stuff. But it's definitely something like I've done a lot of the meditation, mindfulness stuff, and the breath work, but I haven't made a consistent pattern of the breath work in particular. And I know that this is probably my highest priority. So where are you at with it? How has it served you?
Yeah, good. So I did do Qigong for a while, probably about when I was in my 20s and going through that sort of change of life that I went through. That was a big part of my repetition for a while, for about a year, and then I sort of went away from it. Then sort of fast forwarding 10 years, there's a really great trainer on public speaking here in Adelaide called David Griggs. He's fantastic, so I recommend if you have a chance to do that with him. He comes, he's got a theatre background, I think, but he's awesome. He's theatrical, right? But he's brilliant. So he really got into the physiology of public speaking, and again, it was just when you finally get somebody who breaks it down, and me, I'm a bit of science geek. I'm like, no, get this. I see what you mean. So he was really big on, what is nervous energy, and even just the talk to yourself. And he would say, one of the things he said was, if you're scared before you're doing public speaking, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's like
we talked about this before, weren't we? That nervous energy coming into I nearly always bugger up the first line of the podcast, and it's because you care. And there is nervous energy. You're excited about what's going to happen, but there's also anticipation. Oh, now I've got to perform. I've got to get this right.
That's even that just conversation with myself before public speaking was, it's okay to feel nervous right now. Okay, cool. This is good. This gets me excited. It's the narrative in your own head.
Yeah, agreed.
And so he was talking much about the breath work, and so and I started applying that before I would speak, is just taking some really deep breaths. And just relaxing, just being present in the nervous energy. And then I found, as soon as you open your mouth, it's like, it all dissipates, right? And then you're off, right? It's almost like the starting. It's almost like the first step is the hardest step, right? So as part of that. And then recently I got a performance coach, Alex Laws from Performance Laws, and that was about 4 months ago, because I just wanted to, where I'm at in my life and my career, I just wanted to go to the next stage. I was like, okay, I'm,
ready for another challenge.
I'm ready for the next growth, right? How am I gonna hack this? And it was just through a connection. Someone suggested we met up, and we just got on so well, and she told me what she does, and I went, that's what I'm looking for, because I've been looking for my new mentor for a while. So I was like, sometimes you just got to wait.
It's coming back to that manifesting. Like you've got this idea of this intention in your head, and it's like then you're open to it. Like you're open to receiving, and so then when it comes, you recognize it. Yeah. Rather than sort of letting it sort of slide by.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we pounced on that moment. I said, give me that. Like, so I hired her to be a performance coach. Right. So she's, we looked at my diet, my sleep, doing Kundalini yoga regularly, meditation every day. And it's been
Fantastic.
very transformative. It's been great.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How's that informed or influenced your relationships? Like, have you noticed a shift there?
Yeah, definitely. I think probably just being more present would be the way I'd describe it, and especially with my children, just being calmer. So I think as a parent, I think it's when we get there's stages of life, but there's the one as a parent where I think you can get into a bit of a routine of having emotive responses.
Yeah, totally.
And it's really good to snap out of that and recognise what are your, what do you call it when it's
Triggers?
like your triggers,
Yeah.
but also your routine. It's
Yeah.
almost routine phrases.
Yeah.
Like-
Those patterns of like,
Patterns,
you sort
yeah.
of do it without
Yeah.
really being conscious of it. It's just something you're on repeat with until you go,
Yeah.
hang on
Yeah.
a sec, where did that come from? Is that helpful or unhelpful? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
We got 2 kids. How many you got?
Yeah, I got 3.
3.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
3. I think 3 is that tipping point. Like, we're sort of teetering on the idea of it sometime in the future, and then you have
Yeah.
a week of like, my wife had tonsillitis recently. I was like, wow, let's
Yeah,
not do it
yeah.
yet. let's just breathe a bit and just enjoy where we're at. But
Yeah.
you know, I don't know what you're like, and I'd love to hear. But one thing that like Kim and I do is try and it's that non-threatening kind of language around like, how do you feel about that interaction, or like like just trying to again get back to emotionally grounded to go, well, we've got an almost 3-year-old, and sometimes she'll challenge her.
Yeah,
And especially
exactly.
with Kim, there's like
Yeah.
this little bit of it. The more Kim pushes, the more Zen sort of then pushes back, and so it's like, and I'm no witness to this either. But there's times when I'm like, man, like just. I said, please, could you, I just want you to help Dada, like I helped you, like,
Yeah.
but it's
yeah.
really like trying to recognise what is it that
Yeah.
from you, where's that coming from, but also what is it they need?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
one of the most simple things that I do is just get down to their level,
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
just be like, be present with them, like let them
Yeah.
feel like they've got your full undivided attention.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much that changes, because then their nervous
Absolutely.
system gets a chance to sort of decompress and.
Yeah.
Is that something
And equilibrate with yours, right?
Yeah.
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 And so having much deeper conversations with my children, so even with school drop off, so they're getting more comfortable with communicating to me what's going on for them.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is really good. And then my son did a project this year where, and that was a bit of a little event when it was on Anzac Day, and I've gone away a lot for Army, so he's, it's funny how you sort of repeat the, some of your childhood with your children, right? But he mentioned something about how he didn't associate positively to me being in Army because I didn't talk about.
Okay.
I didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's just really fascinating. So that's been, so it was good for him to finally, he's 12, now he's only just told me that. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
How good is that, like, to be that
great.
conscious and comfortable communicating with your dad like that, right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
And now we can talk about it, which is great.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you can be on autopilot and just miss all of that. So
Well,
I'm just grateful that
Yeah.
I'm now more present and more awake and can be there for my children.
It's very satisfying, that.
Yeah.
Because like, you have your career and you have the things that you want to challenge yourself with, but then like usually that's to serve something else in your life, which is family, like, or close relationships, and and often we get caught up in that the stress of work, or the things that we're doing out of obligation rather than out of passion.
Yeah.
And then we bring that energy back into the home, and like it really interrupts that sort of homeostasis.
By choice.
Yeah.
And by design, you've designed that, right? Yeah.
Totally. And so then how do you change that? Like, what do you want it to look like? Is there some way of grounding yourself before? Again, you go through patterns, like sometimes you're like, okay, I recognize where I'm at, I'm carrying this, I'm just I like to do a bit of a physical kind of like, just cut myself off from these outside energies. Like, it makes me feel like I'm sort of taking back my own kind of emotional energy, so that then I can ground it and then be present and give from love, I guess, like rather than from obligation. And I find that helpful. But then sometimes you feel like, oh man, I'm already late home, like kids are about to go to bed, and so then you kind of rush in, and when you do that, sometimes you miss it because you haven't given yourself that chance to synchronize with those around you.
Yeah.
So how does, like, I'm just intrigued because
Yep.
when we talk about this stuff, like partners play such a big role in this, because if you're coming from very different perspectives on what parenting is or how you would like to parent,
I like this topic.
Yeah. So how does that work with your partner? Like, how do you guys communicate around that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a communication piece, but I think broader than that, there is a sort of philosophical piece to it, which is, it's what a wonderful thing that our children have two parents, right? Because they get to, getting back to diversity and inclusion. So one of those benefits is that there is that diversity of perspectives.
Absolutely.
So that's let's encourage that. Let's embrace that.
Let's invite that, because that's exciting. It's where we learn.
Yeah, exactly. And so for our children, again, we were talking about if we just hang out with people that think like us, we don't actually learn or develop from that. So that tension of having different perspectives is a good thing.
Agreed.
And so I guess I'm lucky, my wife and I, we embrace each other's differences and we're complementary and just acknowledge that. So if you can communicate that, and even having that communication of acknowledging to your partner that, yes, you're different, but I accept you the way you are, and this is good that we are different because it adds variety to what it is. Our relationship.
I have this saying that I've used with Ben, and at first I thought he thought I was a bit crazy, like, and I was like, "Thanks for being you." He's like, and I was like, to me, that's one of the greatest compliments you can give someone. Because it's saying like, I just value you for who you are, not what you can do for me, and that's very much like Kim and I, like, you have the image in your mind of what you're seeking in a partner, and usually when you start out, it's kind of about the look and the activities and the commonalities. And then when you give yourself a chance, you're open enough to something different, and you're learning about someone else. Like you said, that diversity is kind of what informs you and influences you and stimulates you within that relationship to feel challenged. And to me, some of the best relationships I have are those relationships where there is differences, but the difference is acknowledged and accepted, because there's real safety in that. Like you can feel vulnerable and okay knowing that you might disagree on a particular topic or a way of doing something, but you accept each other for that. Rather than having to live in fear of, like you said, judgment before. I've spoken about this a couple of times on the podcast, but the Southern Men's Gathering is an event that I hold annually, a not-for-profit, and I didn't grow up feeling a lot of safety around men, like, or strong emotional connections with it. I had it with, mum and women in the family, but there was, a handful of people that I felt like that, and they weren't in my immediate family, at least when I was young. And so for me to go away and spend time investing in that and being a contributor to the storytelling part of the event and offering to other people, but also a participant in, like, what am I learning from this, like, around the way that I communicate, how I create safety, like, both for myself, but the person that I'm interacting with. And I just think, like, it's such a beautiful thing. I had this idea around relationships that that team player type, not team player, we're on the same team mentality. Like, you have to have each other's back, because if you don't, what's the point in being in a relationship? It's the closest relationship you'll form in life, other than your children. And so just the way that you form that and invest in that, and I tested it a few times and it didn't work out, and you start to go, oh, does this actually work? And then when you find you just need a willingness, and when you come back to what you were saying before about the commitment to learning, I think that is a willingness to explore, a willingness to be curious, and that, to me, that's where the best rewards have come in life, is when you do that. You go, it would be easy to go, you're not my kind of person, or or I fundamentally disagree with you on that, and But if it's actually not causing direct harm, like if it's not like such a difference where you see it hurting people, it's just a different opinion. Like, you can still respect that, you can still like accept that, and then what comes from that is often really interesting, because you have to have perspective to be able to work out where you sit on that spectrum in different areas. And if you're only willing to live in an echo chamber, which is what many people do on their social media and stuff, and by design for the technology, but when we invite those differences into our life to learn and be curious, man, it's rewarding.
Absolutely. And then leading into strengths and weaknesses, right? So even just talking about the relationship piece there'll be certain scenarios or situations where it's great to work as a team. So I know that my wife is better at, some aspects of that emotional
What
comfort.
are they? Go on, acknowledge it here.
Yeah, for the children.
Yep.
Which is lovely. So she creates a very warm and loving environment, and I create, which is great. And I'm more, visionary. And I'm always like I'm all about change, right?
Yeah.
So she's a constant, and I'm the change. So which is great.
Introduce chaos. Come on,
Yeah,
try this, do that.
Exactly. And so we meet in the middle, and then so it's an excellent blend and balance because. You're talking about the 2 steps forward and not necessarily 1 step back, but we go kind of like a surge of change and we'll settle down and then surge, and so we're evolving and growing as a family, which is good. So leaning into that.
Yeah, it's a good way of explaining it. The surge, or sometimes Ben and I refer to as like a phase that you're sort of working through, and like when you become conscious that that's what it is, it's not like this. Oh, we're always going to be stressed or we're always going to be challenged like this. It's okay. Like there's a frame that we're working this for, because there's a meaningfulness or a purpose in what we're doing.
Absolutely.
So welcoming that, and then what can we learn?
You can only be you, right? And you talked about it before about the you thing. Thank you for being you, but also you want to encourage everyone to be themselves, right?
Yeah.
How about you be you, right?
Yeah.
And my wife and I joke about, well, you do you,
Yeah.
which is fine. We're cool with that. I do want to talk about the surge thing, just around. We're a physiological organism, right? And we have seasons. Women have cycles, right? And so we are cyclical in nature. So all of ecology has cycles, and we're human beings. We're an element of that. So I think that surge piece is also recognizing that everything does work in cycles, and there's this, even thinking from a physical law perspective, there's actions and reactions, and you can layer that up as individuals to families to communities to societies, right? And societies are societies. So I just find it interesting that I do think there's a lot of so that surge piece, but that happens on so many different levels, and so you see the rise and fall of civilizations, for instance. The same thing is occurring. So and that's a natural part of life, right? There is growth, and then there is decay, and then it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and this again, but just before we started, you were talking about kind of your perceptional feelings around what's the word for it?
Death.
Around death. But like I guess I was trying to say it in a way that like it's the impermanence around it, and the impermanence around everything. So again, when you acknowledge that, and absolutely there'll be sadness, there'll be fear, there'll be all this sort of stuff, the mourning and all those types of things, but that it is cyclical, and that's part of life. And yes, it might feel confronting, but the more that we lean into that and give ourselves the chance to kind of to not run away from those feelings when there is hurt, when there is loss, but to also go, like everything else, it's that law of impermanence. It's there's a I think I don't know if it's Sanskrit. It's called anicca, and anicca is very much that. It's the law of impermanence. This too shall pass.
Yes.
It's to me it's such a reaffirming message, because it's like, well, yes, you can feel like this. Allow yourself to feel that.
Yeah, exactly.
Work out if it's hurtful or unhelpful.
Yeah.
And then choose what you do with it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the times, we sort of avert those feelings which we consider negative, and yet it's necessary sometimes as a coping strategy to allow ourselves psychologically and spiritually to be able to be okay.
That's right.
Even though we don't feel okay, but to be okay not being okay. Yeah. To give ourselves the space to then when we can sort of feel that out, to then move forward to the next thing. Yeah. Because it's the whole thing, it's that resistive force. The more you push up, almost the more that life tells you,
action reaction.
Exactly. So, I'm really enjoying this conversation, because I just love the consciousness about you, the way that you clearly are very reflective on experiences, and you use that to sort of define and pivot towards the next thing. So is that something you've been aware of yourself, like as being a strength of yours? Because not everyone has that.
Sure. I think because I do have leadership roles, I lean into that, and then you know, when I talk to people about caring about people, that's, I think, a real strength of that, and I think so. It's the relationship, understanding the humanity angle is. I think it's just my natural, authentic leadership style, which is working for me.
It's
triggering
again, well, and me too, because compassionate leadership is one of my values. And authenticity is another. So it's like those are, if someone was to describe me, they're the two things that I kind of want to be felt for, like to know that it's landed and I've had an impact. There's obviously other things around like innovation, adaptability, and creativeness and whatnot, but fundamentally, you just want people to see you, to accept you, and to feel your care. We talk about purpose being made up of, you know, a connection, like with someone or a group of people, about you know, the experience that you seek out together, and then the growth that comes from that. You have those three things, and you'll have meaning, you'll have purpose. Like, and when you look at it that way, it's so freaking simple. And it's like, but so many people they're still exploring what their purpose is, and I think. To me, a lot of that comes from the way that we're conditioned through our childhood and through school, and it's about, you know, do you want to be a fireman? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a policeman? Like it's sort of it takes out the individualistic nature of who we are. Like there's so much we've got in common. Like you know, we're so similar in terms of, you know, the breathing. I don't know anyone that breathing, like, you know, good breathing doesn't help. Like most people enjoy a warm embrace from, you know, their closest kind of relations or partner. Like, you know, most of us will love being outside on a clear day, or you know, getting some fresh air and out in nature and those sort of things, right? So there's all that stuff we have in common, but it's when we, if I just identify you by your role, then you're completely replaceable. It gives you no value and meaning to who you are. If I just go, you are, you know, Ben Flink, and you're, you know, senior manager of innovation. Well, then once you move on from that role, you lose that role and someone else takes over it. Well, then where's your identity within that? And so it's like the whole thing around, I love when I first meet someone, moving very quickly away from what do you do, and I try not to even say it. Like, what keeps you, you know,
what do you do on the weekend?
You throughout the week? Like, I want to go, what's your passion? What do you care about?
Exactly. What do you do when you're not getting paid to do it?
Exactly. What's that conversation you have with someone where you feel yourself do this, you just light up. You're like, yes, I'm in. This is my zone. Like, let's go. Can you articulate that for you? Is that I've really put that on you, haven't I? we don't send questions out early and give people
that's
warning.
Interesting. I know for me it's definitely nature, right? So I love my thing is gardening. Was surfing, but
Ben sitting here off camera just going, my God, these guys need to go out for a beer together.
Oh, really?
Well, not a beer because I don't drink beer.
You're a gardener?
Sorry, the last couple of years, God, it's amazing how we default back to beer or like something known to society. It's not what I would do. But I don't even know where it came from. The gardening I love. The last 2.5 years, again, like test it. Like I've put that thing off for so long in life because I've got no idea how to do it. I kill indoor plants. Like I don't. And then I went, I got a mate who does some horticulture stuff, and I was like, we bought one garden bed. He helped me get the soil, and we did it. I was like, right, now I've got enough tools to be able to replicate this myself. And then there's 8 garden beds, and there's pots all over the freaking house, like lounge.
What are you growing?
So not lounge, they're backyard. Tomatoes, zucchinis. I've got all the different sort of herbs. Strawberries doing really well this season. Nearly every day going outside picking like a small punnet. I was like, especially when you got young kids, like that stuff's amazing to demonstrate like you're investing in something and you reap a reward for that. What about you?
Well, lots of things, but I want to talk about the architecting piece. So for me, that's a manifestation of that you can do that's really practical about manifesting and architecting and realizing that that's a system and you can influence a system and things happen. And I think then you can lay that up more broadly in life. I can architect and design my garden bed for me, right? What do I, what's my fertile soil? What are the conditions where I am I growing at my best, you know? So that's the piece. But I will talk about, it was really, when I was doing my army training, and we had to choose what job we wanted. Right at the end of the officer training, and I was on this mountain range in Canberra. I was always going to be an engineer, but I got to be the platoon commander, and I'm laying there, and it's summer, and it's a thunderstorm and lightning, and there's ants crawling on me, and I was like, I like this. And I went, I'm going to be infantry. I like this thing of, I'm covered in canned cream and mud and ants are on me. This is me, So,
cool.
So that love of
Was that always
nature,
there, though?
probably. I was always an outdoors, kid, building cubby houses and, catching snakes or, I don't know, whatever, lizards and all that. Do you know what I mean? So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I fumbled my way to that point. Like I started off being like almost like, a little bit too clean maybe, and like like you go and play, like let's say it's a soccer. I grew up in Tassie, so like it's always muddy and wet and like during winter season and stuff, and it's like, so as soon as you get out of that, it's like I need to go clean up kind of thing. And it's like camping was like I'd like to be more comfortable kind of thing, whereas now it's like, man, like I just want to explore that side of it, like
natural.
We're over sanitized in Western society, especially when we live, within the city components. Like, and I always thought that I had to have stimulation around. And as you mature, you're like, oh man, like the stimulation actually is like more satisfying when you do it out there. Like you get out back to sort of our roots. And
it comes back to being present, right? So if you've without the architected stimulation by tech giants, right, you get into nature's stimulation, which is far more getting into that physiological state where you're in balance with your environment, and instead of having this external influence creating an artificial sense of internal stimulation. So,
agreed. Well, I wiped all of my social media about 18 months ago too. I've come on and off it over years because it served a role for something. And then when that role was complete, and you can't, it just feels, to me, it felt really dissatisfying and a really unhelpful kind of influence. So like I've obviously kept the LinkedIn. I went and checked out your profile.
You need to keep that.
But like it's to me, like it's not satisfying. It's not helpful. Like. So it's
not useful from a self-worth perspective.
No, it's a distraction to the things that really fulfill you, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a distraction piece in terms of doing what you're meant to be doing. What fulfills you or what's in your soil. But I also think there's an element of, from the Facebook perspective, in particular, of an artificial sense of what other people are going through. So it's all happy, and you're only going to put things on there which are positive.
Present your best life.
Yeah, exactly. And so
antithesis of authenticity, really.
Exactly right. And so you think, and then I'll notice in others this conversation they have. Well, they're always smiling, so they must be happy. And then, like everyone's human, right? And one thing I wanted to talk to is about relativity. I find this really interesting. That I've certainly learned a lot more as I'm older. I think we all go through the same broad challenges and hardships, but I think that the caveat is there's a relativity aspect, and it doesn't really matter. And what I mean is, I'm talking today about my mother committing suicide, and that's just a challenge. That was just an obstacle that I had to get over, right? Or to work through, and it's made me. But we all have obstacles. We all have something which is, the antithesis to us, or the thing we need. It's our hero's journey that we all have. Exactly. We all have our own hero's journey, and so then I don't have any judgment about this thing about I've been through a lot. I don't even think about that. It's like I've had my journey, and you've got yours, and we're all here to help each other. There's no kind of quantifying or...
No, I really like that because it's one thing that I'm really uncomfortable with the whole thing around status and like hierarchy. There's different times in life where it is useful, like I guess, but like not when it's coming from perspective of condescending, if you know what I mean. Like, so not,
what's the intent?
If we're having a disagreement or something and you pull rank, well then it's like, that's there's a bit of arrogance, there's a bit of disconnection, like there's all this other stuff that just it's very destructive to a relationship.
Yeah.
We talked about, I don't know, have you read, you might not have, John Gottman's work on relationships?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Familiarity, wow. And he talks about the 4 horsemen, and the one that you can't get past is that one around, like if you're coming from a place of, almost hierarchy, feeling that, well, I'm a bit old, I've had more experience than you, or I've done this before and you haven't, and it's very destructive. Like
it's not valuing other individuals for what they bring, or that perspective, or that experience. And actually, you're talking before about what we bring of ourselves to work, right, to a workplace. We were talking about that before, and that's something I have learned as well. Is even in the work environment, we only get a very shallow perspective of our peers and colleagues, and they've got so many more talents, and we don't unlock. I'd say one of the things I'm being active with my team is how do I help them to be more authentic at work, or bring more of their passion or more of themselves.
This is our jam. This is what we love. Yeah, absolutely. And we love, so we have kind of like our framework for how we do that. But the thing that gets really exciting is when Ben and I go, okay, we've got this, I won't call it a job, we'll call this, this plan coming up with, with you guys, with RA, let's say. Yeah. And it's like, how do we tailor that? How do we provoke thought? How do we, do that to your environment and your people, not just because there is no template. I can't give you a one pager and go, here it is, go and do it. As much as we've the synchronicity in the way we talk and understand each other. It's like, everything is an individual experience, and so we love coming in and being the provokers of that. And the way we do it is through experiential learning. It's not.
I like that.
You've got to be. You got to move. You got to be practical. You've got to. It's got to be stimulating for people to want to engage with it, to not feel like they're being talked to, or that they have to sort of record it, reflect on it.
It's got to be internal.
You just got to be being and doing. So we got lots of activities that that's what it's all about. It's to get you out of that thinking mind. There is forget about the past, future, whatever. Be here, and here with who you're around, and what that creates. That's why we do it. Human connection like that. Those interactions where you really feel someone. Like you were talking before about the synchronicity at home. That's my biggest driver in life. Wherever I feel that. It feels so nourishing. And diametrically, when it's not there, it feels so hurtful. So to feel like you can influence that and do it in an innovative way, it gets me excited. So keen to explore that further.
I like the experiential thing, and it's something that Defence does well. Is we train our service men and women through experiential learning. So it's great. It's the best way to prepare people for the real world, right? And the other thing on that is something I've been grappling with is around lessons learned. So I was talking about the cycle of things, right? And the rise and fall of civilizations, and even in the microcosm where we are in Defence, we complain a lot about we wrote a report. We did this thing a year ago. Did you read the report? And it doesn't bring it to light. I can see that you said if I do that, that's what will happen. But it's almost like Bart Simpson. Well, I need to touch the cupcake and get electrocuted a few times. Totally. That's when I know this is real. So I find that piece interesting. And then even today, my team and I had a bit of a disagreement on something, and it was good. So today I actually just acknowledged, you know what, I've had a fixed mindset on this. I said, you know what, this is my opinions based on my experience. How about you just do an experiment and we'll just run it side by side, and how about you learn, come back to me with the data.
It's it's actually it is a Defence Force thing. Is it playing red team or something like that? I think what it's called. And so the whole thing around it's deliberately being the devil's advocate almost, or having the alternate scenario, so that then you've got contrast, you've got something to compare to, rather than thinking, I've got the perfect plan and going in there there is no perfect plan.
There is no, that's very true. Right. And it's a dynamic environment. The future's uncertain, and because planning on itself is thinking that the world doesn't respond to what you're doing. So that's not how it works. So for every move, for every action, there is a equal and opposing reaction, right? So
it's kind of an artificial way of finding safety, because you go, okay, I feel okay now. There's a plan. And it's like, again, have a plan. Allow yourself that. Just just allow it to be here. Have a vision,
Your vision,
but let's not
exactly.
get too tightly held to
Yeah.
that. Every time, for me, expectation has been a killer of actual experience. The more you go, this is how I want it to look, rather than coming from a place of curiosity and exploring, the more you're like, oh man, that's not how I thought it would go. And previously that could cause frustration. Now it's like, no, like that's interesting. And even when you described the disagreement this morning, like I've learnt to get to a place now where it's like, that was helpful. That was worthwhile. Like because it taught me something. I was challenged in that moment, and I either did respond the way I wanted or I didn't. And if I did, great. I've sort of compounded that learning. And if I didn't, great. Another opportunity to learn. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
And it's not about being a blind optimist. It's just about going. Like everything is. We talk mindset again. Very intangible until you explain or demonstrate how you can use it. Everything is reframing. Like it's not to go, because there's some really nasty stuff that's happened in the world. So we're not telling you that you have to then go, oh, well, that was a really good experience. But like, I had 6 operations on my ankle. I lost able-bodied sport through, injury footy. Like, it'd be easy to live in a victim's mindset, but it's like, well, actually, if it hadn't been for that, I don't know my wife, I don't have, kids. I didn't.
You wouldn't be where you are right now.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff, right? And it's like, I would love to be able to run. I can't. But there's all these other things I've discovered I'm able to do. And stuff that I've invited into my life because of that experience and how I allowed it to shape me in a good way, not to define me in a negative or victim's kind of experience. So
agreed.
I think this conversation has been really valuable. I know I'm
great. I've loved it.
It's
good talking about this. And the more we talk about it, the more we share and get other people thinking about it, because it's more conversations. And I like your terminology of just about being conscious, like really being present. So without it, for a long time, I will say this, our natural state is autopilot. I do think that's our the brain is like the best automation machine there is. Right? And so I think we have to keep constantly sort of breaking the pattern to go.
Be a catalyst for something. It's like, if we said, how does your tongue feel right now? It's like, what? My tongue, that's right, it's there all the time. That's right, but I don't notice it, but now I do. Like I'm acutely aware of it. It's like, don't think about the red ball in the corner of the room. Like you have to, just intervene on that autopilot to be able to then really experience the richness of life.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect.
We've been going for quite a while, but like I think we can let's talk about just a little bit before we finish up around the innovation that you're using within RAA now, and sort of what your vision is for that.
Yeah, so you've got, maybe looking backwards and then looking forward. So we were formed as a membership at a technological revolution, which was the automobile, and there wasn't roads. It was just there was pathways, whatever, and there was deaths occurring. So people started to get some cars, and it was made like pedestrians and horse and cart, and so we got together and go, hey, we need to make some rules. Let's form a group and lobby the government to go, we need to separate people, pedestrians and automobiles. So it came from a good place. And then here we are, really at this time where we are, there's a tipping point of a lot of technological revolutions. So much going on, and I think our relevancy as an automobile club, particularly around electrification, is really important. And there's this story that we use about range anxiety with automobiles, and being able to have drop off or caches of petrol, or getting petrol to people if they ran out. And here we are with the biggest, one of the biggest fears around electric cars is, what happens if I run out of power? So here we are again with a very similar problem with a change in the transportation that we use. And we're leaning into helping our members move, right? That's what we're about, keep our members moving. So that's good. We're the largest membership organisation in South Australia. So some 790,000 members.
Wow.
And so it's 2 out of every 3 households. And being a membership organisation, I think we've got a couple of things. One is a responsibility, and we're a mutual, and we can be a massive advocate for change. We've got a huge membership base to change. So I think we've got that social responsibility to do the right thing and also support the state through this transition period that we're going through. What does that mean in terms of what we're about? So historically we've been motoring, home and home insurance and travel services.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing from the home perspective, we've got solar and battery storage, cars going electric. So we'll lean into the energy space.
Yeah.
So motor, home travel, and energy.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting. In terms of our process for innovation, we do scenario planning. So have a futurist approach. So we look at plausible futures in those categories.
Yeah,
A really long-term lens of what could be.
Yeah.
To then work backwards from that vision to go, well, what do we, where do we see it? Where do we want to play a role for our members moving forward? So, what does that mean in the motoring piece? Electrification. Really interested in the sharing economy or access economy. So there's this pivot point where we are around asset ownership. So moving forward, there's this question mark around, is it an Uber economy moving forward where you just pay for accessing the services as you need? Or question, will we still own assets moving into the next sort of 50 years? We don't know. So part of my job is actually exploring that, testing business models in that and preparing us, from a learning perspective. What might our role be? Should we, be going down this pathway of non-asset ownership, for instance?
Okay.
So,
It's interesting. There is a huge amount of change going on in the world, mate, more than I've experienced in my lifetime. And again, I think that's where the concept around adaptability becomes so valuable, because it's not pushing anyone towards anything. It's giving them the tools to be able to respond to a situation as it presents itself. So rather than being an emotional reaction.
The experiential learning that you talked about before. So if we think about what we talked from an innovation perspective, we're doing the experiential learning of doing a trial. Well, let's trial this non-asset based business model, and so we get the practical learning of going, well, this is how this business works. Should we need to pursue that in the future? So rehearsing the future. Yeah,
that's gold. And with when you've got so many members, there's going to be a diversity within that in terms of how people want to experience that, or which direction they'd like to take that in. So then being able to, again, you teach adaptability, all of those people are served. If you're just teaching the thing that you think is the primary option or the most desirable option,
backing a specific winner.
Exactly. You're probably taking 10 to 15% of the population with you, and you're putting everyone offside. So it's like, to me, it almost comes back to parenting. Like, what do you want? How do you want you talked about independence before, right? I tend to use self-sufficiency. Because to me, when you're self-sufficient, your relationships are based on wants rather than needs, kind of thing. So it's like, rather than needing you to fill this sort of gap in my life, it's like it's desirable to sort of explore that with you, because that's something that we're giving freely, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, we give and receive freely rather than giving from obligation or bitterness and resentment that pops up because of that when we're self-sufficient.
And have self-love, right? And then we can love others.
100%. Like, it's, life is really just one big mirror. Something happens. It's like, what is this teaching me about me?
Exactly.
What can I learn from this rather than holding resentment towards someone else? It's like, you can be thankful for an experience which was less than desirable, because it's like, well, that's an opportunity for me to address that now. Like, it's brought it to my
learning
attention.
opportunity.
Brilliant. I think we're
Thanks.
gonna. Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
It is. I'm really satisfied. Like, there's so much value in what we talked about. Like, I love the communication stuff, the relationship focus, being a compassionate and empathetic leader, innovating, being adaptable. Like, I think there's just so much richness in what we've explored that it's almost difficult to summarize it as just one thing. But, if someone wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn, so Benjamin Flink on LinkedIn, or just reach out through RAA. Awesome. I'm open to new opportunities as I'm paid to do. So
absolutely. Well, again, it's good, the catalyst stuff. Bring something new in to feed a new idea and explore it. And
send it through.
Yeah, awesome. And for those that are listening, whether it's your first episode or we've listened to many, you can head to our website, download the free ebook, so how to go from surviving to thriving, and there's plenty of other resources on there as well. But if you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and comment and all that kind of stuff. So Ben, it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed the conversation.
It's great. Cheers.
Awesome.